The doors of your car will close automatically. Please keep your head and arms inside and remain seated at all times. And please, no smoking. Thank you.
Matterhorn Matt presents Matterhorn Mondays.
Hey there, Mountaineers! Welcome to episode 27 of Historyland. I'm your host, Matterhorn Matt.
And I'm Alex the Historian.
And today we have some really awesome topics for you guys. Today, our topics are, well, the first one is we're going to be sort of recounting a lot of the Disney news that's happened in the past week, because we haven't really talked about sort of recent Disney news the past couple episodes. And our second and main topic is going to be changes Disney shouldn't have made to Disneyland. That's an interesting one Alex and I are excited to get into. I hope you all are excited to get into it as well. Yeah, let's see. Let's go ahead and get into the first topic now. Alright, here we go. I actually have a PowerPoint set up to have these images looking good, so yeah, this all looks good. Alright, so our first sort of piece of Disney news is the fact that Disney announced, I believe on Wednesday or Thursday, one of those days, actually February 27th, I'm looking at the article right now, Disney announced plans to make this park better. I can never remember the name of this park for the life of me. Walt Disney Studios Park.
Walt Disney Studios.
Disney has announced that they are going to be expanding this park greatly. They are adding three new lands, and I think they're adding on to their sort of mini Toy Story land that they already have. So we're going to get started with the first. Well, I guess the most interesting part of the expansion, at least for me, which is the Marvel Land that they are planning on introducing. Now, I guess right off the bat I should say this sort of marks the end, or I guess the death, of the Backlot Studios theme for a park, at least in Disney parks, because they're already mix and matching in Hollywood studios. It's not much of a recording. Not really recording, what's the word I'm looking for? Backlot park, I guess that's the word I'm looking for. It's not really a backlot studio tour / park anymore. They're just transitioning it to sort of live out your favorite movies, like in real life, which is kind of sad. I mean, I've never really been a fan of the whole backlot theme. I mean, Universal does a good job, I guess. I haven't been to Universal in a while, but I can tell by the looks of the befores and after of Walt Disney Studios Park that this park really needs this expansion, because it is just a bland park that does not have a lot going for it. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that from the first piece of concept art that they have released, it shows that Tower of Terror is not changing to Mission Breakout, which I find sort of interesting, but also kind of suspicious, because the Tower of Terror, as you can see in the picture right here, is literally right next to the Marvel land that they're going to be building, and it doesn't really, at least for me, it doesn't really make sense to have the Tower of Terror right next to the Marvel land when they can just retheme it to Mission Breakout, which, I mean, at this point, I'd be fine with them retheming the Tower of Terror to Mission Breakout. It's worked decently here in DCA, and at least here in the Walt Disney Studios Park, it'll be, I guess, right next to its home with the Marvel Land. In California Adventure, it sticks out like a sore thumb, just because there aren't any other official Marvel-branded attractions around it. But, Alex, what are your first initial thoughts on the Marvel Land they are adding to Walt Disney Studios Park in Paris?
Well, I think that it's a good idea that they definitely expand on having Marvel properties in that park, that park definitely seems like kind of a blank canvas in which to add stuff to it. And as much as I'm not really a fan of Marvel stuff, I do have to say that that's what people want. They want to have these kinds of experiences at that park, and so I think it's actually a good idea for them. And from what I understand, the project is kind of like a reskinning of what's already there in that part of the park. So anyway, I think it's kind of a smart idea to have that. So that's my thoughts on it, at least.
Yeah, I believe they're reskinning the Aerosmith Rock and Roller Coaster attraction to an Iron Man attraction, and I think from the concept art, it looks like they're adding the Ant-Man and the Wasp attraction that I think they announced for Hong Kong, or maybe it was Tokyo. It was one of those other Disney parks. But like Alex said, this whole part of the park, or I guess part of the expansion, is just basically a lot of reskins to already existing attractions. I don't have any befores and afters to bring up, but yeah, I mean, I'm glad that they're adding Marvel to the land, and it's not really intruding on anything else. I mean, I'm sure people who regularly visit this park would be happy to have a Marvel land just to have that something else to do. But yeah, I still think the Tower of Terror looks really suspicious, just sitting on its own, really right in the middle of nowhere. I mean, Tower of Terror sits right next to Marvel Land, and then there's the entrance right here, of course. So I'm still really suspicious as to what they're going to be doing with Tower of Terror. But I should point out that this is only possible because Disney recently bought out, well, not really bought out, they finally fully acquired the Disneyland Paris park, because it was previously owned by a lot of different, I guess, smaller companies, but Disney finally bought out the entire, I guess, park or parks sometime last year. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the second sort of area. There we go. Now, they are adding, it looks like a mini Galaxy's Edge up here. Now it's interesting because I don't see the Millennium Falcon anywhere to be seen. I do see an X-Wing, but I'm not sure if they're going to have the Millennium Falcon attraction. I'm sure people are going to be way more excited for the Marvel Land or for even the Frozen Land than for the Galaxy's Edge, since Disneyland and Walt Disney World are going to be getting Galaxy's Edge before Paris, and this does look like a scaled down version, at least in the concept art. I should have said right off the bat to keep in mind that this is just concept art, and I believe it's the first piece of concept art that they've released for this. Yeah, Alex, what do you think about them adding a mini? It really does look like a miniature Galaxy's Edge up in the top left corner.
I'm sorry, you're cutting out.
I said, what do you think about Disney adding a sort of mini Galaxy's Edge up in the top left corner?
Oh, yes. I think that well, I don't really know that it really fits in that park, but I guess if the park is really kind of like a studios park, I guess they could go with the excuse that, it's kind of like you're walking into a set for Star Wars or something. So I guess it works out that way. And as for it being a mini land, I'm probably sure that's because they don't have very much space there to expand on having a full-size Star Wars land. But I think I suppose that my overall thoughts would be that it's a good idea once again, because that park has nothing in it and nothing going for it, and so I guess they want to expand it and make it into this full day kind of theme park where you can spend your full day there and really have something to do. So if that helps, then I say that's great.
Yeah, I feel like before this expansion, well, I guess currently this park to me is sort of a quarter-day park. it really does not look good. If you look at images from the park today, it does not. It just doesn't look good, guys. Trust me, just don't even look at the pictures. Just take my word for it. The park is a mess. Now, we're going to move on to the more interesting part of the expansion, which is a Frozen-themed land. Now, in all my days, I would never think to add a Frozen-themed land in a backlot-themed park. I understand Star Wars, I understand Marvel, I understand Toy Story, but I don't understand Frozen. I guess people enjoy Frozen, which is interesting because Frozen came out what feels like 10 years ago. I'm sure that's not near correct, but it does feel like a long time since Frozen came out. Alex, I already know what you're going to say. What are your thoughts on the Frozen land they are adding to Walt Disney Studios Park?
Oh, you already know what I'm going to say, huh? Well, we'll see about that. No, you're probably going to be right. I don't like Frozen at all, and I think the movie is really terrible. But I kind of saw this coming. I kind of saw that Frozen would eventually have its own land somewhere, sometime.
Mm.
But I guess it fits into what I was saying before with, that's what people really want, and I guess it's not hurting anything being in that park. I mean, it's not like that park has a big reputation to keep up or something,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, if it were like another park like Disneyland, Disneyland has a reputation to keep up, and so I suppose it's not doing any harm being in that park.
Yeah, and plus, since this whole area that Frozen and the Star Wars land are taking up is basically, there was nothing there before, I believe, probably just backstage areas, but there wasn't like any attractions in that area. And the also sort of major thing that they're adding to this park is this huge lake right in the middle. Let's see. I should also mention that Disney plans on sort of rolling this out in phases beginning in 2021. Yeah, the new lake will be the focal point for entertainment experiences and will also connect each of the new park areas. But the one thing I sort of can't get my head around, let me get back to it, is sort of this long strip of what looks like nothing. It just looks like a long walkway. I'm wondering what that is going to be. I mean, they could maybe have shops there, but it just looks like a long just road that leads to the lake. Then you have to walk around the lake to get to Frozen Land, and then you have to walk this way from the lake to get to Galaxy's Edge. It just looks like a waste of space. I mean, I'm sure there's nothing that they could have done, but that's just something that I felt was worthy to be pointed out. Other than that, I think that's it from the expansions. I know that they're adding, let me get to a close-up. I know that they're adding the sort of alien swirl saucers down here in I guess it's like a mini Toy Story land. They're adding the alien swirl saucer thingamabobs from the Florida. But I think that's basically it for this expansion. Overall, I mean, before I had no interest in visiting this park. Even if I was able to visit this park, I probably wouldn't. I'd skip it. But now that they're adding, I'm interested to see what they're going to do with the Frozen land, because as you guys can see in the background, there's a huge mountain. It kind of reminds me of the Matterhorn. I'm wondering if they're gonna be adding a roller coaster, or I don't know. It's really anybody's guess, but I'm really excited to see what they're going to be doing with the Frozen land and also the Marvel land, because we already basically know what's going to be going on with Galaxy's Edge. We have the Millennium Falcon attraction, although the Millennium Falcon seems to be absent from this concept art. But other than that, I'm really excited to see what direction they're going to be taking this park in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and there's one last thing I wanted to say, which is that lake. I have a feeling is going to be a place where they're going to host some kind of water show. I mean,
Mhm.
as you know, they're doing that to Animal Kingdom in Florida. So, I think the idea of having a water show has really helped Disney because it's cheap. Basically, once you build it, you don't really have to spend any more money on it.
Mhm.
As opposed to a fireworks show, which you pay for every single time you do a show. Um, so yeah, I think we can expect a water type nighttime spectacular show to happen on that lake.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for water nighttime shows. I love World of Color. Yeah, again, like I said, I'm excited to see where they're. I'm excited to see the new direction this park is going to be taking. Let's see. Techworth 101 says Frozen was a fad. Most people look back on it and cringe. I am one of those people that looks back on it and cringes. Why couldn't they have built a Tangled Land instead of the Frozen Land? I feel like that's just me. I would rather have a Tangled Land than a Frozen Land. Oh my gosh, there are so many things in chat. Jake says keep Tower of Terror, but Vetter, I believe I pronounced that right, says change Tower of Terror. So we got a sort of conflicting ideals in the chat right now. Swag for 95 says Mission Breakout is fantastic. I'd have to agree that Mission Breakout is a really great attraction. I just wish it didn't replace the, some might say, even greater attraction before it. But let's move on to the next bit of Disney news we have, which is Disney has announced a lot of movies for the next 5 years. 5 years, guys. Disney is going to be making so many movies. We just wanted to sort of touch on the big blockbusters. Well, I guess sort of, you can count every movie on this list as a blockbuster. But sort of the major blockbusters from 2018 and the beginning of 2019 now. I've never read the book, A Wrinkle in Time, but I can proudly, well, maybe not proudly, I can say to myself that I'm not excited for A Wrinkle in Time. It reminds me a lot of Tomorrowland, and we all know how Tomorrowland ended up. I don't know, it just doesn't look interesting to me. It might look more interesting if I knew the source material. But from the trailers, it looks really bland. It looks like it relies a lot on CGI. Yeah, right off the bat, this is not one of the movies I'm looking forward to, which is surprising because a lot of the other movies on the lists are movies that I am looking forward to. But Alex, what do you think of A Wrinkle in Time?
Honestly, I don't really know much about it. Like you said, I haven't read the book and I don't really know anything about it. I've seen some of the previews for it and it doesn't really interest me all that much. Well, it doesn't interest me at all, actually. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't look interesting to me, but I will say that A Wrinkle in Time comes out March 28th, 2018. That's only a couple weeks away. So for you hardcore fans of A Wrinkle in Time, now's your chance to go see it adapted to the big screen. Now, one of the movies I am looking forward to, Avengers Infinity War, releasing April 27th. They pushed up the release date, I believe, by a week. It was originally supposed to come out, I think, on May 7th, I believe. May 5th? It was probably May 5th. But they pushed up the release date a week earlier. And this is, you guys, if you don't know what Avengers Infinity War is by now, I don't really feel like explaining it to you guys, but it's sort of the culmination of every Marvel movie up until this point. I really can't explain it. You'd have to know the movies to know what it is. But Alex, I know you're not much of a fan of Marvel movies, but we're all dying to know. Are you going to see Avengers Infinity War opening night?
No, I haven't seen I haven't seen any of the Avengers movies.
Oh my gosh.
They just don't interest me. I'm not You know, I don't. I'm one of those kinds of people that when I see movies like that, it just makes me exhausted because there's so much going on, and it's just a lot of visual effects and things like that. And on top of that, I'm not much of a person for superheroes and things like that. It's just not my kind of thing. So yeah.
Let's see. Jake says the reason why they pushed it was because May is crazy because of Solo and Deadpool 2. Those are two other big blockbuster movies that are going to be releasing in May, and I can understand their reasoning as to why Marvel decided to push ahead the release date of the movie. Swag for 95 says it's the movie 10 years in the making. Yes, it took 10 years to get to the point that we're at right now with Avengers: Infinity War. Moving on to another movie I'm really excited for, The Incredibles 2, which releases June 5th, 2018. Now, I believe Pixar Pier is going to be released or opened sort of alongside the release of not Avengers 2, The Incredibles 2, which is a downside, but I think, I don't know, I don't feel like talking about Pixar Pier today, unless you guys want us to talk about Pixar Pier. But Incredibles 2, I believe they released a trailer maybe a month ago or 2 months ago. They released it during the Super Bowl, I think. I don't even remember. They released it sometime in 2018. But I keep getting this mixed up with Avengers. Incredibles 2 is a movie I'm looking forward to. I love the first Incredibles movie. It's one of my family's favorite Disney Pixar movies. I don't think it needs a sequel, but I'm excited to see where they're going to be taking the characters. And from the look of the first trailer, it looks like they've got a lot of fresh ideas to work with. Alex, what do you think of The Incredibles 2?
Well, just like you said, I don't think the movie really needs a sequel, but it's probably one that I'll go and see in theaters myself. I did like The Incredibles a lot, so maybe it'll be a good movie. But yeah, like you said, I'd really like to emphasize they did not need a sequel for this, but Disney knows that they can make a lot of money off of people who really want to see more of The Incredibles.
I'm me being one of those people. Now, one of the movies, I don't know how to feel about this one. Mary Poppins Returns, releasing December 21st, 2018. I do not know how to feel about this movie. I believe Disney said sometime last year that Julie Andrews was not going to be in the movie. I think she said something along the lines of, I don't even know the actress that's playing the new Mary Poppins, but I believe Julie Andrews said that she wanted the new actress to sort of shine on her own without having Julie Andrews in the movie. And I have heard that they're going to be sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Animation, like how they had in the first one. They're going to be like live action mixed with 2D animation. I think it's 2D animation. That's just something I heard on or read online, which would be awesome. But this is, again, another movie that did not need a sequel. Mary Poppins, the first Mary Poppins, is an amazing movie on its own. But yeah, I don't know what to think of this movie. Alex, what do you think of this movie?
I probably will not go and see it. Like you said, Mary Poppins does not need a sequel. I mean, look at this. There's another one here too. Wreck-It Ralph, the sequel. They don't need one for that either.
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of sequels to a bunch of stuff. But no, I probably won't be going to see Mary Poppins Returns, especially because Julie Andrews did such a great job in the first one, and Mary Poppins to me has always been Julie Andrews. I don't know.
Yeah. Jake Earth pointed out that Emily Blunt is going to be playing Mary Poppins. I don't know why I couldn't think of her name, but Emily Blunt going to be starring.
She's a great actress. She's
Yeah.
a great actress, but
Yeah, she really is, but I
Yeah.
just don't know what to think of this movie. Like I said, the original did not need a sequel. I'm not even sure if they made any of those cheap direct-to-video sequels to Mary Poppins. They might have. I might have missed it, but yeah, like I said, I don't know what to think of this movie. Hopefully it'll be good. I'm still going to be seeing it. Jake also said Disney needs money. That's probably the primary reason as to why this movie's getting made, but hopefully it's good. I'm fingers crossed that the movie's going to be good. Now, one that Alex wanted to talk about is the live-action Dumbo movie, directed by Tim Burton, releasing March 29th, 2019. Alex, what did you have to say about the live-action Dumbo movie?
Well, I don't think that they should make it, honestly. And it's because if you've ever watched the movie Dumbo, it was designed to be specifically a animated movie. It's got so many aspects to it that belong in animation, and so one of those things is the fact that all the main characters are animals and they all talk. And so I think that when you have a CGI movie made up of animals that talk, it kind of looks weird. So, like, for instance, I have to cite the movie Jungle Book. When that came out in live action, it was really weird, like, to see like such realistic looking animals talking. And even then, I didn't think that they did the movie justice by recreating it. And so I think that Dumbo is one of those movies where it doesn't need to be done. And if you do it, it's going to look creepy. And if you look at the concept photo, which shows a picture of Dumbo himself with his big floppy ears, it's a little creepy because he's got these big blue eyes and he looks realistic, but at the same time he looks so alien and so strange. Yeah. You know, it's just not good. So I wish that Disney would stop doing these kinds of movies. They're not good, in my opinion. And if it's anything like Jungle Book was, which was absolutely awful, then I hope that I hope I never lay eyes on this movie. So
now the interesting thing is that you can't really count this movie as a live action remake because everything's going to be in CGI. I'm not sure if they're going to have any live action actors present. You could say the same thing about the Jungle Book movie. You had one live action, maybe two actual humans in the movie. The rest was computer generated imagery. I don't count that as a sort of a quote live action remake. Something like Beauty and the Beast or even the Cinderella live action remake, those you can call live action remakes. Whether or not they're good is a different story. But when it comes to these movies based around animals like Dumbo, The Lion King, and the Jungle Book, you can't really do it without the aid of computers, without the aid of CGI, which is interesting. I don't know. That's just something I thought I'd bring up.
Yeah, that's another one that they don't need to make is Lion King. You know how awesome the original Lion King was?
Yeah.
You know, like, they don't need to remake it. That's like remaking Jurassic Park. You just don't do it. You don't touch it, you know? And Lion King is one of those. It's just, it was done so well, it doesn't need to be touched upon again, or else you're just going to ruin it. And that's what I think that they're going to do. I mean, they're going to ruin the movie Dumbo for me just because they're making this new movie.
Yeah. Again, I've never seen the original Dumbo. You guys can hate on me in the chat, in the comments if you want, but it's on my list. I'm going to get to it eventually. One other thing I wanted to bring up, I'm just going to read off all the movies Disney has planned to release in 2019. We have Captain Marvel, Dumbo, the live-action remake Dumbo, Avengers 4, Star Wars Episode 9, the live-action Aladdin remake, Toy Story 4, the Lion King live-action remake, and Frozen 2. That's 8 movies that are either sequels or remakes to already existing franchises. I didn't mention the Disney Nature's Penguins, which comes out in April, or the I can't even pronounce this movie. I'm just gonna count 2 sort of non-IP based movies. Toy Story 4. We don't need. I don't think we need a Toy Story 4. Toy Story 3 was the perfect ending to the Toy Story trilogy. March 27th, 2020 is the live-action Mulan remake. I heard rumors a couple, I think like a year ago, that the live-action Mulan was not going to be a musical. It wasn't going to have any songs in it. I don't know. I felt very strongly about that. You can't really do Mulan without the music. I mean, that's really what made the whole movie. But yeah, just think about it. I believe 7 movies in 2019 that are based on already existing franchises, and maybe 2, maybe 3 if Disney decides to throw in some other random movie. 2 movies that are not based on any singular intellectual property. That is something I thought I'd never see from Disney, because Disney is just they're known for releasing really great original ideas. I mean, some of you might not count Beauty and the Beast or Cinderella as, quote, original non-IP based movies, but yeah, that's just something I never thought I'd see. And Frozen 2, November 29th. I mean, we don't need a Frozen 2. If anything, we don't need any of these movies, except the Marvel movies, which I'm a huge fan of. But yeah. But yeah, like I said, all these movies that Disney's gonna. I haven't even gotten to 2020, 2022, even though the ones from 2020 to 2020 on don't have names. Although they do say Disney live action, so I don't know if that means live action remakes or live action other movies. But yeah, all these movies that Disney's releasing are not original movies. I mean, they're ripping themselves off, is basically what I'm trying to get at. Yeah, that is just really...
Yeah, but you know, the thing that really like makes me mad is like when you look at this whole list, because I'm on the website and I'm looking at the whole list of movies, and none of them are original ideas. They're all ideas borrowed from something else. And yes, I know that a great number of movies are like that. But what I mean is that a lot of these are, like you said, sequels or ideas that were already in existence, and then you're just making it into a movie. You know, for instance, for their Marvel stuff, you know, they've got a whole bunch of comics that they can go and just make them into movies instead of having to think of something of their own, you know. And then and then you've got this Solo movie that's coming out this year, and that's all part of Star Wars. I mean, if anything, Solo is the most original story that they're coming up with in the next 5 years. So
yeah, that's really saying
it just
something.
makes me yeah, I know, it just makes me sad.
Yeah. Joseph the Hatbox Ghost, what are your thoughts on Disney's current slate of movies to be released within the coming years? What are your thoughts on the remakes, the sequels, just whatever you have on your mind?
I don't know. None of them really seem like they would be any good. I'd probably still watch them all, just because, you know.
Just because
I'm a
they're
huge
Disney.
Fan, but, yeah, but I don't expect them to be any good.
Thank you. I agree with that.
Yeah, you could say like with Beauty and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast, visually an amazing movie, but story-wise, they made a lot of changes to the original that I didn't really agree with. I mean, like I said, visually it's a beautiful, beautiful movie. Emma Watson does a really great job as Belle, although I don't know why someone who lives in France would have an English accent. That was one of my biggest pet peeves of the movie. But yeah, thank you, Joseph, for giving us your insight on the Disney's current release slate. Now, let's get to our main topic, which is changes Disney should not have made to Disneyland. Now, I'm going to start off. My first, I guess, number one thing that Disney should not have changed was the Tomorrowland 1998 makeover. Well, I guess I should say Disney should not have done the Tomorrowland 1998 makeover. And if they were to do it, it should have been with a higher budget. I don't know how Disney, when you think of Disney, you think of this huge business where they basically can't do anything wrong. But this is the epitome of Disney doing something wrong just for the sake of being cheap. I have a whole episode about this, a whole episode of Historyland on the Tomorrowland 1998 makeover. Shameless plug, you guys can go check that out after you're done listening to this. But yeah, the Tomorrowland 1998 makeover is really one of the things I'm most upset, I guess that would be the word to say, most upset at Disney for doing. They got rid of such iconic attractions. The People Mover, to give an example, they got rid of America Sings, even though that closed before Tomorrowland 1998 makeover happened. But I mean, I say this to myself a lot. I say this whenever I'm crying in my room because of how much I hate this makeover. I don't really do that. I was just making a joke. But I tell myself that they did the best they could with the amount of money they had. I mean, you can look at it. You can look at this piece of concept art that's on screen right now. You can look at it and say to yourself, that does not look half bad, right? But when you see it in person, when you see the way they executed it, it just does not make any sense at all. I would have been down with the whole steampunk retro overlay of Tomorrowland in Disneyland if they'd done it right. Alex, what are your thoughts on the Tomorrowland 1998 makeover?
Well, definitely it was very unfortunate because it's one of those situations where they went ahead with a project even though they were seriously under budget and they had a whole bunch of ideas cut from the original plan, and yet they still went full force with it and still decided to alter Tomorrowland. And I think it was just terrible that they did that. They shouldn't have even worked on it if it was going to be like so cheap and underdone. And one of the worst parts was, I can't blame them for adding rocket rods. I know that they really wanted to add something new to Tomorrowland, and the People Mover had already been closed for a while. But the problem with rocket rods was that, once again, even though it was the star attraction of the new Tomorrowland, they still built it even though it didn't have the budget to do the upgrades to the track that they needed. That attraction, thanks to the fact that they didn't have the budget for it, that attraction is now gone, and it damaged the People Mover track to the point where we can't use it to this day. So thank you, Disney. Thank you for cutting the budget to the point where they couldn't really do anything with it, and thank you for still forcing Imagineers to build this new Tomorrowland, even though you didn't want to do that. Or should I thank Michael Eisner for that? I don't know. Yeah, that's my thoughts.
Now, Swagford95 says they closed 4 attractions and only made 2 new attractions. That is just, I feel like Disney would have some sort of rule against that. I mean, closing 4 attractions and only making 2 new ones? Okay, so they opened Rocket Rods, that's 1. They opened Innoventions, would that count as the second one? And alongside that, they have the Astro Orbiter, Autopia, Space Mountain, and the monorail. And Star Tours. And they did not have Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters back then. That's 7, I think. 7 total attractions. 7 mediocre attractions. Yeah, like Alex said, we can all thank Disney for breaking the People Mover track beyond repair to the point that we can't even use it anymore, to the point that no one can use it anymore, to the point that to fix it, they would have to demolish almost the entirety of Tomorrowland just to fix it. There are just so many things wrong with this. The fact that they moved the Astro Orbiter to ground level right at the entrance to make the entrance a huge bottleneck, and these stupid rocks. Man, why did they add those rocks? I'm getting all worked up now. Now I can say that this change, I guess, did lead to... No, I cannot say that. I was going to say that this change can lead to at least a couple good attractions later down the line. I don't really think Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters is a good attraction. It's just not my style. But one of the biggest offenders, in my opinion, was Innoventions. I remember visiting Innoventions when I was a kid, and I was very confused, and even later down the line, not just when I was a kid. I believe I went in 2015 when Innoventions was still open. I think the top half was a Marvel exhibit. You could meet Thor, you could meet maybe even Iron Man, and they had a bunch of Xbox 360s or Xbox Ones. That does not seem futuristic to me. But yeah, I think we've done enough harm to tarnish this poor land's reputation. I really do feel bad for Tomorrowland. With all the budget cuts, like I said, it could have been good if the budget was just not 5 cents. Yeah, let's move on to our second, which is Toontown. Now, Alex personally picked this. I wonder why. Alex, what do you think of Disney adding Toontown to Disneyland?
Okay, well, in my opinion, they should have never added Toontown to Disneyland. That is where I think a whole bunch of stuff went wrong. They added Toontown because they wanted to have a new land where kids could enjoy themselves and things like that. And granted, they had good intentions behind it, but just because you have good intentions does not make the project a good idea. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that is wrong with Toontown is the fact that it's a single IP. It was based off of the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and that movie has a lifespan, has a point in time where it starts to die out amongst society, and people will start to forget about the movie. And so, that usually happens with a lot of movies. I mean, unless it's an amazing classic like The Wizard of Oz, people won't forget The Wizard of Oz. But you look at Toontown and Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and it was meant for failure. Mm-hmm. And so they chose Toontown because they said, hey, we need a place where we can show where Mickey, Minnie, Donald, and Goofy live, which is a great idea. But Toontown itself has a main attraction, which is the Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin. And quite frankly, I feel like it's an underwhelming attraction, although it's a favorite by a lot of different people, including you, Matterhorn Matt, right?
Yeah. I don't mind it.
Yeah, so
I think it's an okay attraction. I just wish it would have been done better, but you can continue saying what you were saying.
Yeah. Yeah, so, anyway, Toontown was basically a ticking clock, if you will. It was just ticking down its minutes, and it still is to this day. I mean, granted, it's still pretty popular, but a lot of kids don't know the reference. So here's the other problem that Toontown opened up. It kind of opened up this can of worms. And basically, it was the first IP-based land added to Disneyland. And thanks to that, Disney felt that it was fine to, in the future, add another IP-based land. And that became Star Wars Land. Star Wars Land is now being added to the park. And when I tell people that Star Wars Land doesn't fit, that it's because it's an IP-based land, people then refer to me, oh, well, they added Toontown. Toontown's an IP-based land. And to that answer, I always say, yeah, they should have never added Toontown. So that's my thoughts on it. Yeah.
Yeah, I say this. Matt? I say this all the time. I don't like going to Toontown. Everything, like I said, I say this all the time. Everything looks like it's covered in germs. It's just got this sort of weird gloss or shine to it. I mean, I'll go to meet Mickey and Minnie and all the other characters, but I will not touch anything in Mickey's house. I won't touch anything just in the land in general. Yeah, I feel like Toontown would have been better if they would have maybe, I was gonna say if they made it better, but that would not have been a good explanation. It just would have been better maybe if there was a bigger budget, or if they anchored it with without Roger Rabbit, possibly. Because I'd still like to have a place where you can, like a dedicated place where you can meet Minnie and Mickey, visit their houses too. That's always an exciting part. Like I said, I won't touch anything in there just because everything looks all sticky. But yeah, it's a really neat idea. On paper, having a dedicated place where you can meet Mickey, Minnie, Donald, and Goofy in their own environment, I guess would be the word. But it's just sort of, it's really gone downhill the past couple years. They stopped using the Jolly Trolley, which I guess is understandable because there's a lot of little kids running around Toontown. But yeah, Toontown, there needs to be either lots of bulldozers or something. I guess lots of bulldozers would be the only answer to this problem. Yeah.
You know, I myself, I'm all for there being a neighborhood Mickey, Minnie, Donald, and Goofy live. As a matter of fact, I've even said a few times that I think that they should remove Toontown altogether, and what they should build is where the Fantasyland Theater is currently next to the Disneyland Railroad. They should build a small little Mickey Street where the houses of Mickey, Minnie, Donald, and Goofy are, and it's just a little cul-de-sac or something where you can go up to their houses and meet and greet with the characters, and they should just call that Toontown. And then that way they don't have to alter the name of the train station, so that way they could still keep the original narration that goes, a trip around Walt Disney's Magic Kingdom, stops at Toontown, that kind of thing. So I think that they should have like a little Mickey Street, but other than that, they should bulldoze Toontown and build a whole new land there altogether. They should have never added Mickey's Toontown to begin with. And that's yeah. And Jake Earth just asked, has Alex went to Walt Disney World? Yes, I have. I've been to Walt Disney World, but I'd like to go again. Not that I think Walt Disney World is all great. I want to go again because I want to see some of the new stuff they've added, such as the World of Pandora.
Now, yeah, Alex really hit the nail on the head with his description of Toontown. Now, moving on to my second thing Disney should never have changed. This shouldn't have changed because it hasn't changed yet, but it's coming in the future. I believe the Pirates of the Caribbean and Walt Disney World went down for refurbishment a couple weeks ago just to get rid or alter the redhead scene. I do not think that Disney should change, or I guess alter, the redhead scene. Although I do understand why they would. They don't really want to be associated with buying brides, auction, take a winch for a bride. That whole, I can understand why Disney would get rid of it, but it's just really the main argument is that it's such an iconic part of the attraction. It's really, I guess you could say, the most iconic part of the attraction. I guess now that it's been so long since they announced it, I'm sort of okay with it, even though in the back of my mind I'm still wishing they wouldn't. But Alex, what do you think of the redhead scene being changed out?
Well, this has definitely been a really hot topic, and it still is even to this day, because a lot of people, they get so mad at me for my opinion on it. But I'm proud to give my opinion on this because I really feel strongly about it. And it's that, okay, first and foremost, I don't really mind the change. I'm okay with the new scene that they have planned. It looks like it's going to be great, and it looks like it fits. However, I don't think it was necessary. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's necessary to alter the ride. For that purpose. I mean, you're riding a ride about pirates, and they do pirate things. And granted, we don't want to see the pirates, doing intimate things with women or anything like that, because it's, once again, a child's theme park as well as an adult's theme park. But granted, I think that the original planners that designed this attraction, such as Mark Davis and Claude Coates and John Hench, all of them, I think they all came up with a good balance as it was. And I think the redhead scene was a good balance. It didn't show anything bad, but it showed, it showed these women being auctioned off as brides. And once again, the literal context here is that they're being auctioned off as brides, not as some people call it, sex slaves or whatever. It's a Disney ride, so therefore their ideals and their context and things like that are all Disney. I've never had or heard of a child asking about this scene and what it means or anything like that. It never occurs to children to really ask about it. It hasn't been damaging as far as I know. I just don't think it's really necessary. I think people are just a bit too sensitive nowadays. I mean, you go home and you watch worse stuff on TV than this, and yet you're complaining about what's in a Disney ride, something that doesn't show anything horrible happening. So, in any case, that is kind of my opinion on it. And I don't think it was necessary, but yeah, that's my idea on it.
Yeah, really the main argument is that it's a ride about pirates, and like Alex said, this is what pirates did. Pirates chased women around, pirates drank alcohol, pirates shot guns. This is everything, I mean, of course, like Alex said, to a family-friendly extent. But I was, when this was first announced, I was a very strong advocate of Disney not doing this. I even went as far as buying a little button, I think from Etsy, that had a picture of the redhead, and it said, "Just get over it." I think that was the caption. I wore that around the parks. In retrospect, it was kind of, I guess the word would be cringy for me to do that. But like I said, I was a very strong advocate of Disney not changing the scene because it was such an iconic part of the attraction. But now that I've sort of had probably almost a year to process it, I'm okay with it. But it would be nice if they would have just left it as it is. I think even Alex and I brought up a couple episodes ago that Pirates has been changed so much over the years that it's not really the original ride that it once was. For example, the pirates have been changed from the pirates chasing the women to the women chasing the pirates around in the scene where the town is on fire. The women are chasing them with I think with like brooms and stuff to get them out of their house. They've also added Jack Sparrow to a lot of the scenes of the ride. So like I said, it's really not the original ride that it once was when it opened, which is why another reason as to why I'm okay with this change.
Yeah, I mean, if you really think about it, the pirates auctioning off women as brides is the Disney way of saying, you know, what they're trying to say. It's already been Disney-fied, if you will. So I don't think it's really necessary to change it. Like I said, I'm not against the new scene. I'm not saying like, oh, the new scene is terrible, you know, all that stuff. So it's just, it wasn't necessary to begin with.
Yeah, someone asked, Jake Earth asked what the new scene looks like. It's basically a scene where I think they're instead of auctioning off women, they're auctioning off treasure, and I think the redhead has changed. She has like a shotgun in her hand or something, and all the other women around her are like covered in jewelry, and they're like auctioning off the, I guess, treasure. I think that's what it is, but I mean, it's not...
they turned the redhead into a pirate is what they did.
Yeah, that's what they did. They have her in total pirate attire, again with a gun. It's not a terrible scene, not at all, but like we said, it'd just be nice for them to just leave it as it is. Alex mentioned it's already been Disney-fied. So just leave it as it is. Like Alex said, I haven't really heard anybody complain about this scene. Just up until recently when they announced that they were going to change it, that was actually the only time I've heard people complain about this scene from the ride. But yeah, we've rambled on about this for enough time. Let's go ahead and move on to Alex's second what Disney should have never done. Alex decided to choose California Adventure as a whole. Well, I guess we both decided to have California Adventure as a whole. But yeah, Alex, why should Disney have never built California Adventure?
Well, this was Matterhorn Matt's idea. I wanted to talk about it because obviously I think he and I share the same opinion, but also because I love to complain about California Adventure. It's my favorite thing to do. So so without further ado, DCA, Disney California Adventure, should never have been added to the resort. It was just a horrible idea to begin with because, first of all, they had ideas to do something great. They had ideas to do a Westcott, and that would have been kind of good. I mean, granted, I don't think Westcott would have been really pulling in any huge numbers for the resort, but it would have been better than California Adventure, that's for sure. But the thing is once again, they started cutting the budget down and down further until they couldn't really do anything. And then, of course, the city got involved, and the city didn't want to see this giant golf ball looking sphere in the skyline and all that. I mean, granted, they were okay with a giant rotting tower, but they were not okay with a futuristic looking spherical building. That's really strange. Anyway, California Adventure, really what it was just built on the cheap. It was built for about $600 million, which is half the budget that they originally planned to give to this idea. And in total, that's actually really cheap for a theme park of its size. And it was very disappointing. And the attractions were very cheesy and cheap. I mean, the best thing that they had, honestly, was Soaring Over California. That's the best thing that they had. But the whole park itself was not picturesque in any way. It was not beautiful like Disneyland. And it just wasn't necessary, that park. It failed to begin with. I mean, this is honest truth for those of you who are DC. The park was a financial failure when it opened. It was the first Disney theme park to fail. And the park was just not up to the standards that Disney has and stuff like that. So anyway, this park should have never been added. It was just a bad idea. and it's been a problem ever since, because Disney has been trying to pick it up and put it on its feet, and it's just never quite happened. I mean, this is why they want to add Marvel Land to it and all that sort of stuff, because they need more people visiting California Adventure. And granted, even though they gave it Buena Vista Street and Cars Land, that made it better, but it's still not anywhere close to the quality that you get from being at Disneyland. Or even, as I have to say, Animal Kingdom. There's not much to see at Animal Kingdom, but that park is loads better and more picturesque and more beautiful and just loads better than California Adventure. So in any case, I think Disney should have waited. I think that if they were just going to cut the budget like that, like the way that they did to New Tomorrowland of 1998, if they were just going to cut the budget like that and just decrease the project to this tiny little thing, they should have never done it to begin. They were better off just building a downtown Disney and extra hotels, and that's what they should have just done. And they should have left that space open for a better park than what they came up with. They didn't have to do it, but yet they still went ahead and did it. And now look at what it looks like. It's just horrible. And and the last thing I wanted to say is in 2012 they were coming up with for the park to go, but then doing this Pixar Pier and this Marvel Land, it just doesn't make sense to the California theme anymore, and so it's just dead. This park needs to be reimagined even still, and it needs to be given a different name. It's just not good. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I totally agree with Alex. Original California Adventure was on par with the current state of Walt Disney Studios Park, as we talked about earlier. And also, as we talked about earlier, how they're expanding, a major expansion to Walt Disney Studios Park to pull in more guests, which is sort of what they're trying to do with California Adventure, with Pixar Pier, with the Marvel Land, whenever that is going to happen. I don't even know if that's still a thing, because I've heard no news since D23 about that. Sam the Griff said, "I love how they narrowed down the features so much on DCA that they had to advertise the bridge that the monorail went through." That is a really good point. But yeah, original California Adventure, I remember going when I was a kid. I remember being very confused as to what the sort of sun right at near the entrance, the sun right here. I was very confused as to what the heck that was. I mean, of course, it looked like a sun to me, but I didn't know what it was. And of course, you have things like a Superstar Limo, all those terrible, terrible attractions. The park really didn't get good, I guess would be the word, until they built Tower of Terror, which they built Tower of Terror because they knew that the park sucked. They knew that the park was not pulling in nearly as many people as they wanted. And even as Alex mentioned in 2012, when they were trying to re-energize, give new life to the park, it started out good with, like Alex said, with Buena Vista Street and with Cars Land, but now it is just not. It's just not good. It's going back down the drain again with Pixar Pier and with Marvel Land. Then again, I don't really blame Disney for putting in Marvel Land in California Adventure. I mean, would you guys rather have Marvel Land in Disneyland, or would you rather have it in California Adventure? I'd rather have it stay out of Disneyland completely and have it in California Adventure, even if it doesn't make sense thematically. I've said this before, California Adventure is sort of Disney's dumping grounds for whatever IPs that don't fit in Disneyland, just because there's only 2 parks in California. There's nowhere else to put a Marvel Land. There's nothing like a Hollywood Studios or an Epcot even to put a Marvel Land in. And even things like Pixar Pier, I'm sort of coming around to the idea of Pixar Pier, even though I think it's just, because it really is, it's just a cheap overlay, something to cash in on for all the Pixar movies. But I mean, at least they're trying. Whether or not it be good what they're doing, they're trying to pull more crowds into DCA, even if it's by adding things like a Marvel Land or a Pixar Pier. I read a comment a while back of how they should have introduced, or not really introduced, they should have moved the Country Bear Jamboree to the Grizzly Peak area. That would have been a neat idea, because they're both country bears, and the Grizzly Peak, it's a bear. I just thought it'd be interesting to bring that up. But yeah, California Adventure, like Alex said, they should have just not built anything, and once they eventually got enough money, I guess, they should have built a full-fledged, a worthy park, a worthy second gate to Disneyland, because California Adventure is not a worthy second gate to being right across from Disneyland, the original Disneyland. Yeah, that's all I have to say about California Adventure.
Yep, I agree.
Let's see. There was one, Zoran79 says, was DCA trying to use Grizzly Mountain as its weenie? I believe they were. I remember when they first opened California Adventure, they used the Bear Mountain, the Grizzly Peak mountain, as sort of the logo. But now, since Tower of Terror opened, it's sort of taken over. Oh, well, I guess Mickey's Fun Wheel as well has sort of taken over the role as the weenie for the park, or I guess like the major logo or mascot for the park. But yeah, moving on to general. Oh my gosh, that voice crack. Just IPs in general in the Disney parks. I feel, I mean, it's inevitable, really. It would have. If it wouldn't have happened today, it would have happened 10 years down the line, and people would still be complaining. People like me would still be complaining that there'd be too many IPs in the parks. You can really go, I guess, two different ways with having IPs in the parks. You can have the original Fantasyland IPs like Peter Pan, Snow White, Pinocchio, all the other, Dumbo even. Walt Disney built those attractions, even though he knew they would be based on his animated movies. Although the one argument I have for that is that Walt didn't really know that the movies would be as popular as they were. I'm probably not wording that correctly, but IPs in general in the Disney parks is something that really gets on a lot of people's nerves, especially cheaply done IPs, like your Pixar Piers, your Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters. Even though it's not really a cheap IP, it was sort of just a quick fix for filling the space that the Rocket Rod's queue took up. Even things like Star Wars Galaxy's Edge and the Marvel Land, you can argue, are really bad ideas that don't belong in Disneyland. Alex and I have been saying that Galaxy's Edge does not belong in Disneyland at all. But I mean, there's not enough room in California Adventure, and I mean, at least they're not demolishing a whole land like Adventureland or New Orleans Square to replace it with Galaxy's Edge. That, I guess we can be thankful for that. But a lot of the real offenders I see when it comes to these IP based attractions are Pixar movies. I don't understand what Disney's fascination with putting so much Pixar into its parks. Like I said, you have Pixar Pier, you have Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blasters, Monsters Inc. in California Adventure. But yeah, I don't understand what Disney's fascination with Pixar is. Even Cars Land and the Bugs Life Land, whatever that's called. even though some of you may argue that some of those attractions are well done attractions, like Radiator Springs Racers, that's really it, I guess. But yeah, IPs in the Disney parks. Alex, what are your opinions on, I guess, sort of even more Pixar-oriented IPs in the parks?
Well, I kind of have a slightly different opinion on it. I'm actually okay with Pixar IPs, individually. That is, if it's an individual, I wouldn't want a Pixar land or a whole land based off of one Pixar movie. That's not what I want. I'd rather have single rides that fit into their individual places. So, for instance, I wish that there could be some kind of Ratatouille ride in New Orleans Square. I like having Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blasters. I just wish it was a bit more high-tech looking and a bit more special effects. But I do like the fact that Buzz Lightyear's in Tomorrowland. I like the idea of the Finding Nemo submarine voyage, although I don't ride it because people keep farting in it and it smells really terrible. So I don't ride it. But I like the idea that they have that. I want to see a ride based on Up or something like that, or based on WALL-E. I'd like to see something based on WALL-E. So I do like the Pixar movies, and I feel that Pixar is Disney, in my opinion. A lot of people say, like, well, Pixar didn't start out being Disney. No, that's true, but they did start out making Disney movies. So I've always felt that Pixar was Disney. But like I said, I don't want to see a whole Pixar land or something. I just feel that's kind of tacky to bunch all those movies up in one land just to make people happy. And that's why I hate Pixar Pier, and that's why that's why I just have these strong opinions against. But that's basically my thought.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's really, what are you gonna do? Because it's inevitable that Disney's gonna be plugging in all these very successful movie franchises into their parks, because that's really what guests these days want. Yeah, like I said, what are you gonna do? But I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I wouldn't be opposed to having all these IPs in the parks if they're done well, if they're not cheap. We don't really know anything about Galaxy's Edge yet, but hopefully it'll turn out to hopefully it'll exceed all of our expectations. But yeah, things like Pixar Pier and the submarine voyage are really some things I really don't want to get behind just because they're so cheap. Submarine voyage was one I forgot to mention. Even though it kind of works in Tomorrowland, Alex has mentioned this before, but it just doesn't. I don't really think of Nemo when the word Tomorrowland pops into my head. But yeah, that's really all I have to say on IPs in Disney parks. And I think that's going to wrap up this sort of topic. Although we do have one guest, Swagford95. What are your thoughts on? Well, I guess what is something you wish Disney had never changed?
Okay. So I've been before that I've been listening in for a while, and when you guys were talking about the Toontown, Alex brought up that it was the first land that was based on an IP, which is actually incorrect, because Bear Country was the first land solely based on an IP, although it was the Country Bear Jamboree, and the whole land is just based on that.
Huh. Well, I don't...
I like...
Oh, no, go ahead.
Well, for Toontown, and it was actually, the concept for that actually came over from Magic Kingdom when they had the birthday land for Mickey Mouse for his 60th birthday. I had to build one over in Disneyland, and Eisner's all about that synergy. So
Yeah, a lot of what we talked about can really be traced back to Michael Eisner. Even though he really did make a lot of great improvements to the company, he brought them out of financial disaster. He made parks like Animal Kingdom even Downtown Disney and Hollywood Studios, whether or not you think, any of you guys think Hollywood Studios is a good land on its own, but he did sort of usher in the Disney renaissance of the movies as well, so you can give him that. But when it comes to other certain things that we've talked about, he can really be a pain in the butt.
Yeah. You guys are talking about DCA for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are talking about changing the name of it. I actually like the name they have now. Well, I mean, since 2012, when they changed the apostrophe of where it used to be located to the new place, it's no longer about California. It's just their California Adventure Park. So that's what I always thought about that one.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you could argue it's like a Disney's Adventure Park. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Disney's Adventure Park in California, but I still think the name should be changed. I'm sure Alex agrees as well. Yeah. But yeah. Thank you, Swagford, for giving us your amazing opinions. And I think that's going to wrap up our topics for today. You guys can ask us some questions in the chat if you want, and we're going to be moving up a couple people from the waiting room if they have questions to ask. So for those of you guys listening who are in the waiting room, be sure to, well, I said this at the beginning, you guys better have your questions ready by now. Let's see, oh my gosh, that is a lot. Okay, there we go. I guess I can keep this on, doesn't matter. Yeah, let's see. Joy said the farts, why is this a fact? With a bunch of crying and laughing emojis. Jack Bennett says, I feel Galaxy's Edge gives Tomorrowland a better chance to update, separating the extraterrestrialism. I think I pronounced that right. That is a good point to bring up. I mean, I think I mentioned this 2 weeks ago, it probably was, of the idea I had to retheme Tomorrowland to Star Wars, but I mean, obviously none of us would want to see that. And I do agree with you, adding Galaxy's Edge does sort of give Tomorrowland a chance to find its new identity without having all these Star Wars Land. Not Star Wars Land, having these Star Wars attractions in the parks. Or, man, guys, it's late. Don't blame me, it's late. Having these Star Wars rides in the land. There we go. Finally got it. Swagford also says, Jungle Cruise is based on an IP. Frontierland had Nature's Wonderland and Davy Crockett. That's true. Yeah, I mean, that's tough. I mean, it worked at the time just because it was what was popular. Well, I guess, I don't know. I'm not really mad at those IPs being used. I guess just because Walt did it. Now that he's gone, and now that all these other people, these boardroom directors, are introducing all these other IPs into the parks, at least with Nature's Wonderland and Davy Crockett, they fit naturally into the lands that they were placed in. Joy says, classics I like, but new IPs are kind of eye-roll inducing. But the logic is that Walt Disney is timeless. Things like Marvel and Galaxy's Edge are not. Yes, I'm sure Alex and I agree on that. I think we talked about that last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago, about the longevity of the Star Wars and Marvel IPs. Even go back to what we were saying earlier in the episode of how all the movies, not just the Disney movies, all the Marvel and Star Wars movies Disney plans to release within the next 5 years. I counted maybe 10 or 15 just within 5 years. Sometimes Disney even does maybe 2 or 3 Marvel movies per year. But yeah. Let's see. We're gonna go ahead and move up a couple people from the waiting room to see if they have any questions to ask. Joseph the Hatbox, hello. Do you have any questions you would like to ask Alex and I?
Not really.
Oh. Well, at least he was honest. At least he didn't. Okay. Well, thank you, Joseph. Anyways.
Well, that works.
All right. One more. Swag for 95. Hello again. If he's here, do you have any questions you would like to ask Alex and I?
So if they were to remake Tomorrowland, what would you guys want to see? How would you want it to be set up this time?
Well, I guess the way I would redo Tomorrowland would be to not really copy the Magic Kingdom, but to take inspiration, I guess, from the Magic Kingdom. Just because I love how when the new Tomorrowland in the Magic Kingdom opened up, it had so much, like you mentioned earlier, synergy between the attractions. Everything felt like it was everything felt like it was part of one coherent storyline, I guess would be the word. Nowadays in Tomorrowland, it does not feel like that at all. But yeah, I wish that they would take inspiration from the Magic Kingdom, have a bunch of rides that interweave with each other with one overall arching storyline, like how in the I keep going back to the Magic Kingdom, but it's really great the way they themed the Tomorrowland and Magic Kingdom, because they really solved the Tomorrowland problem, as a lot of people call it, by making by theming it after an alien spaceport. That really gives you a lot of freedom as to what kind of attractions you can introduce, whether or not they're IP based or not. Things like the Timekeeper, extraterrestrial alien encounter were all great attractions that fit perfectly in that land. What about you, Alex?
Well, basically, here's what I wish that they would make Tomorrowland look a lot like the Tomorrowland in Shanghai. I think that looks really good. And I would keep rides like Space Mountain and Buzz Lightyear. But in place of Star Tours, I would like to see either like something based off of what's it called? Big Hero 6, like a simulator ride based off of Big Hero 6, or maybe even a simulator ride based off of the movie WALL-E. I'd also like them to remove the Carousel Theater and to maybe put in a Tron-based ride of some kind. So that's kind of what I imagine Tomorrowland looking like in the future, and that's kind of what I'd like to see.
Yeah, really, there's a lot of ways they can go about making a Tomorrowland makeover. I guess another way that would please me would be to sort of recreate not the original, the 60s Tomorrowland with the People Mover, all the sleek white and blue paint and the amazing architecture. It just screams nostalgia for me, even though I wasn't born to experience it yet. I'd really like it if they did something like that. And I believe there was a question right at the beginning of the stream of what I thought of Black Panther. I thought it was a decent movie. It was nothing groundbreaking like a lot of people are saying. I've seen articles that say Black Panther is the greatest Marvel movie ever, which is not true at all. It had a lot of problems for me. The CGI, a lot of bad green screens. The CGI was not as good as any of the other Marvel movies. I feel like it was, I don't know, it's just not really an origin story, but an origin story, even though it's not an origin story. I don't know, I'd have to see it a second time to get my full opinions on it, but from the first time I saw it, I feel like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I give it a 6.5 maybe even a 7 out of 10 to whoever asked that at the beginning of the stream. But yeah, I'd have to see it again to get my full opinion on it. Joseph the Hatbox says, what about a Frontierland refurb? Did we talk about this a couple weeks ago? I don't think we did. Man, I would not know the first thing to do for a Frontierland makeover, just because there are so little things. I keep thinking back to what IPs would be good to plug into the land, but there are really no IPs that would fit into the land, just because Disney hasn't really made any westerns, I guess, within the last however many years it's been. I don't count The Lone Ranger because that movie was terrible. But yeah, I honestly, I don't know what Disney would plan on doing, or even what I would plan on doing for a Frontierland makeover. What about you, Alex?
Well, I kind of like Frontierland the way it is. I think it's good and it looks great. And but if I did have to do a Frontierland refurb, there is one ride I would like to, and it's the Western River Expedition. I'd like to see a boat ride type Western River Expedition added to Frontierland, although I could never think of the spot in which to add it because there's just no room in Frontierland. But if there ever was room to add, that's what I'd like to see. But as of right now, I think I like Frontierland the way it is.
Yeah, I'd agree with Alex. The Western River Expedition would be a nice addition, but like he said, I wouldn't know where to put it either. Maybe in the spot where Galaxy's Edge is, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. But yeah, I can't think of what Disney would even begin of thinking about to do for a Tomorrowland refurb. I'll have to maybe think about that more. We might do a whole separate topic or episode on that, but I think that's going to wrap up this episode, guys. We hope you all enjoyed, and Alex's channel will be in the description like always, and you guys can support Alex by donating to him on the Venmo app. Everything will be in the description below. You guys can also support me on Patreon. I recently started up my Patreon again. Got a lot of great rewards for you guys who decide to donate, and big thanks to my people who are already supporting me on Patreon, like Swagford. He's supporting me on Patreon. Big thanks to everyone else. Yeah, we want to know what you guys think of the topics. We want to know what you guys think of changes Disney shouldn't have made to Disneyland, or any Disney park for that matter. We want to know what you guys think of the recent announced Paris expansion to the Walt Disney Studios park, and we want to know what you guys think of Disney's current movie release schedule. Yeah, guys.
Hey, Matt. Yes. If you don't mind, I'd like to do a little bit of self-promotion for a second.
Oh, okay. No problem.
Only because it's been a while since I've mentioned that I have a channel, too. So a lot of Matt's followers actually don't know that I have my own channel. And so basically, it's just a history channel about Disneyland. And I have a main series where I talk about each ride individually from what it used to be all the way up until today. And then I have a vlog series where I talk about the park's historical items of interest while I actually go through the park itself and experience the rides and attractions and stuff like that. So I got a lot of really cool shows on my channel, so please check me out. I'm Alex the Historian.
Yeah, guys, he makes really great vlogs in the parks. Alex already went through what he did, so you guys, his channel will be linked in the description below. If you haven't subscribed to him, what are you doing? Go sub to Alex. He makes really awesome videos. Yeah, guys, we hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, have a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.